Hi there. This video is about how my homeschooled daughter was able to transfer into a bachelor's level nursing program at age 19. And maybe this video will be helpful for you if you want to help your child go into some type of nursing or medical oriented field. One of the things that really helped us was dual enrollment classes in high school. So, this is where my daughter was able to take community college classes starting at her freshman year. In our state, it's totally free. I think most states are like that. In California, it's called dual enrollment. In other states, I think they call it running start or things like that. But basically, your child can take community college classes at no cost to you except for books. For us, this worked in for a lot of different reasons. She was able to get real transferable college credit, and it helped us in the high school years because I definitely have a harder time providing a really structured high school class for every single class that she needed to take. So I liked that the community college would be available and that she could be accountable to another teacher. We also did this in conjunction with high school based homeschool programs as well. So when she was in high school, every semester she would have basically one or two classes through the community college, one or two classes through a high school homeschool program, and one or two classes that I personally oversaw. And it seemed like every year I oversaw maybe a little bit less and less, like the less important classes. I think that worked well because I have a lot of younger children that I needed to focus on. And I feel like developmentally it's important at that age for them to have other teachers that they are accountable to. One benefit, I think, in her being a homeschooled student is that she was only taking one or two classes per semester. And so she could really focus on those classes, and she did really well in every one that she took. Things like Spanish or college math, which was statistics, or the biology and chemistry that she needed. There would be times where I would really make a lot of space in her schedule. I wouldn't demand as much for some of those other things that she was taking with me so that she could really focus if she needed to. That really helped her, and then that helped her have a very strong GPA. I will say some negatives about dual enrollment for us were, one, we have wanted a Christian oriented education. Obviously, you aren't going to get that at a secular community college. And so there was some content that I didn't really appreciate her having to go through and things like that. And so, that was very predictable, though. We kind of knew what we were getting into. And then, second, I feel like or I believe strongly that the quality of the education has degraded somewhat since I was in community college. I was really surprised at how little she had to write for English 1A and for critical thinking. It just didn't seem as rigorous. On one hand, that's kind of nice for her because she was able to really manage those classes well. But I was thinking, like, what's going on here? And I truly don't think that a lot of those classes are going to be the same level of academic rigor as if she would have taken them through the university. So to me, it's just not the same. If that really matters to you, or depending on like your major, or if your child really wants to be like a doctor, maybe the community college route really isn't going to be the best preparation for them. I think that some of her science classes were pretty strong and she would have to put a lot of effort into it, but it also really depended on the teacher. She had one teacher who demanded a lot of the students, and a lot of the students in her community class didn't get good grades. she really had to put a lot of extra effort into it. Later, now that she's in the bachelor's level nursing program, she's so thankful for that teacher for providing that foundation. But some classes, especially the online classes, there would be very poorly organized courses and some frustration. So you just got to realize that that's what you're probably going to get at your community college. And then another negative, I think, was that she was often the only high school student in those classes. And I am sensitive to the social nature of that. Like, she didn't really connect with any other students in the in person classes or especially online. And one way that we counterbalance that was that she was taking in-person classes with a homeschool group that we really liked. We found a really great one her senior year. And so she, I think, just took an art class and she was part of a club with this homeschool group. But that was very nice because it was very light academically. She was able to focus more on her science classes that by the time she was a senior, they were pretty hard. She was taking things like anatomy and working through those nursing prerequisites. But the high school, she had somewhat of a high school experience and she made friends and she got to hang out. It was a good balance. So I would just say if you're looking for a community college to provide some type of social outlet for your high school student, it might not provide that because they might be the only younger person. And it does make a big difference when they're, say, like 16 and everybody else is over 18, or they're just not likely gonna connect socially as well. Going forward, when she was going through those dual enrollment classes, she, by the time I believe she was a sophomore, we had decided that nursing would be a good thing to try. And so she very methodically started working through the prerequisites. And that's something I would encourage you to do. Like, by the time you're doing freshman, sophomore year, try to make sure that you're getting those prerequisites in place, because some of the classes that you're required to take, they have 2 prerequisites before that. So you really have to plan out to finish in a timely way. And then I think that it was academically matched for her. That's something to consider too. Like, is your child gonna do well with a lot of the science? I think that a really good thing that we had done was that I always did work through a math curriculum, and I tried very hard to have all my children be on grade level math. And by the time that my daughter was in high school, she was really able to handle math well. And so it wasn't as much of a hurdle in some of those science classes. That's one piece of advice I'd encourage you to do. Just stay on track with math, and also the reading and the writing skills. If they could start high school pretty strong with that, then they should do really well in community college. When she was a senior, we graduated her, and then she just continued working through mostly the prerequisites for the nursing program. At that point, she had gotten most of the general education done in high school. She still needed one more year, though, to finish some of those higher level nursing prerequisites. And that year was a good space. She started applying to many different programs. At first, I thought she would just go into a community college nursing RN certificate program. But as time went on, she decided she wanted to try for a bachelor's degree. And so she was applying very widely. She applied to RN programs through that community college as well as others. She applied at a few Christian schools that were local to our area that had strong nursing programs. And she also applied to some Cal State schools that had a bachelor's of science in nursing. And I also had her take the ACT test in high school, and she scored well. At the time that she took that test, the colleges were not even requiring the ACT, but the Christian schools did want to see that. And the benefit of that was, even though it wasn't an admission requirement, if you get a good score, if your child gets a good score on those tests, then they can get automatic scholarships, which for some of these Christian schools, there were several $1,000s that would be taken off of tuition. So those are really good things to think about. If I were to do things again, I would have prepared her more for the tests and had her take other tests too, because it just seemed like a benefit if you got a good score. And now the pendulum is kind of swinging back towards more universities now requiring those tests again. So I think we're just going to see more of that. So I don't think those tests are going away. So those are worth practicing for and preparing for, so that your student isn't nervous about taking those tests. Another thing that she did the year after she graduated high school was really research the different programs. And that was one step that I didn't realize would be so complicated. It seemed like every school, even between two different community colleges, they would require two different things. She found herself even just taking one class just to fulfill a requirement at one school because they wanted a slightly different class than what she had already taken. So I was surprised at the variety of hoops she had to jump through for the different schools. Also, in our experience, while I started to really like the idea of a Christian university, I they had just seemed so out of the question before. By the time she got admitted to a few different universities, we just found that they really weren't a good match for transfer students. A lot of several for a few of the schools, she got admitted to the program, but they would not admit her to the nursing major. She had to complete a semester there on campus first, and then she could apply, which seemed rather risky because they don't necessarily accept everybody. Even if you're a good, strong student, you still might get rejected. And then now you're at this university where you're paying a lot of tuition. So even though some of those schools were very appealing, in the end, she decided that she didn't want to go through that process. And also, they just really didn't seem like they took a lot of just that transferring was the way to go. It seems like for those schools, at least in my opinion, you really should start as a freshman and they really want you to do the whole 4 years with them, unless you're some type of amazing student, plus you have experience in some type of nursing work, like as a CNA or something like that. So those just didn't seem appealing to her in the end. And I was surprised at how competitive things were, even with good test scores, very, very, very good GPA, and academic experience on paper. She was still waitlisted at one campus, and she did get accepted for a nursing program at a really highly regarded state school. So that was great. But I was surprised. Like, I think it is a lot more difficult than I thought it would be. So for us, her being homeschooled wasn't a negative. But like I said, she had dual enrollment classes that I think all through high school, even though I was the one who made a transcript with our little homeschool name on it, I think that it was those, those dual enrollment classes that were really what the colleges were looking at and as her academic record. And also, she did have an associate's by the time she went on to transfer in. So I guess you could say we did homeschool, but we really did use the pre-existing community college option. And I don't know if she could have really gone a different route. I think you really do have to work within the system. So for us, our method was starting it early, and she did seem to enjoy the science classes that she had to take. And a long time ago, I read this book about no regrets. It was called No Regrets. It's this young woman with really big hair, and it was about how she got a master's degree at age 18 or age 16 or something like that. She had done a lot of college, a lot of correspondence school and things like that, and she got her degree really early. I used to be really excited about that, but now, having gone through it and having some of my children actually taking these college classes early. I'm not as thrilled about it as I was before. I guess I just think that, socially, I want them to have high school experience with high school peers. I think that's important socially. And so, she did do the process and graduate earlier than she would have had we just gone solely for high school first and then community college. I mean, she really took off probably several years by the way that she was able to start working through those prerequisites earlier. But yeah, I'm okay with that. I don't think I really even have that goal of getting a bachelor's by 18 or even getting associates by the time my children graduate. So I think it's cool. It's just something that I'm really not wanting to put in that much time and effort to do. But if you want to do it, that great. It is an option, especially here in California where things are very flexible. So I think a last thing that helped her was just um, being able to be an independent worker and good work ethic. That's something I have tried to encourage all through homeschooling. There are just times where I feel like it's about second or third grade. The children realize, hey, math isn't really fun all the time, or like work can be boring. And I've tried to not let maybe like dips in attitude phase me, or I've tried not to let it make me change what I'm expecting them to do. I just have really seen that that's part of life. I can't always make school fun. There's just things you have to do. And I've just seen that it takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of work for a child to master math facts, and it's not always fun. It takes a lot of work to write grammatically correct sentences. And so I try not to be like an ogre, but I do demand certain things and we just have to do it. And sometimes I'm even presenting things like, hey, if you get your things done, then you can go have free time and, go do Legos or go whatever. And so I just think, though, that steady expectation of sometimes school is just work and it's not super exciting did help her have a good foundation for when she got into those classes. And I wasn't always overseeing a lot. I mean, I really didn't help too much for community college. I think I mentioned my husband had to help in her math class. Maybe I didn't, but in statistics, I didn't know statistics. My husband did have to help point out some things, but I really was not overseeing much. She was really in charge of making sure her assignments were done, that she was communicating with professors and all that. And so I would say if you want to do something like a rigorous program with community college, do it early, to do it early, to go into some type of medical program. Just really think about with those early K through 8th years of trying to instill a good work ethic, just trying to be consistent, because by the time they're in these classes, I don't think it's really appropriate for you to be really looking into things like, too much or having to nag. I mean, I think they really have to be ready for it. And also, you probably are busy and you're not going to have the time to manage, all these different outside classes. It really needs to be something that they can do. For us, it has worked really well. The only thing that maybe I would say I wish I had tried to work in more, but I didn't know everything. I wish I had talked to more people or maybe researched more. I just thought, oh, nursing's a good option. I thought you could get that degree done in a short amount of time through community colleges, even though that's not what my daughter ended up picking. And I also thought it's just a really great service-oriented job. It really can help people. It's something that if she ever wanted to go into like medical mission type work, her skills would be very useful. It's flexible, I see a lot of benefits to it. But what she didn't really have a lot of hands-on experience actually working with people in healthcare settings. So if I were to do it again or encourage another child to go this route, I would probably encourage doing something like some type of short term training where they could get some hands on experience. Some of my friends have had their children do like CNA, some type of CNA certificate, and then they start working part time as they're building up their prerequisites. And then, from what I heard too, some programs will look at somebody who has that actual job experience, and that might actually be a big factor in whether they get admitted. So, the program that my daughter went in, it really was just based on grades and the test scores. But I think she said that even this university has said they're going to start trying to factor in more work experience if somebody has been a CNA and all that. So maybe even if someone's grades aren't as strong, but they have that experience, that's going to be a very desirable candidate for the program. So that's something that you could consider trying to get your child to work in some type of setting. And then maybe too, they'll see like, do they actually like this type of work? I'm sure I can think of a few other things that would help somebody who wants to go this route, but I think that's going to be it for now. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments. And then I guess maybe one last thing I would just say is that obviously try to communicate with your child and also see what their strengths are. I don't think these science based programs are for everybody. And so you don't want to do something that maybe is overly frustrating for the individual child that you're working with. But if I have any other child who has maybe the same openness to a medical type job, I think I am going to encourage that. Hey, well, why don't we try this? And I'm a little more familiar now with the sequence of things that they're going to encounter. So, it's been working really well for us. And I'd love to hear some type of comment of maybe if you've homeschooled through high school and into college, like what you did to help structure that time, and then also to help pave the way for your child to have options, whether it's college or trade school or whatever. Okay. God bless you. Have a good night.